Are tariffs simply being used as a negotiating tactic? This is my third installment in a series on what is going on with the tariffs that were announced on April 2nd and how they're affecting the economy. So, did we institute broad tariffs on almost every country that we trade with on April 2nd simply because we want to renegotiate the deals? We've definitely heard whispers from Trump's team and even some shouting from Trump's family that this is all about negotiation. So, is this a good idea? What does it mean? What you should know? First thing you should know about tariffs as negotiation is that if that is the goal, it is almost completely at odds with supporting domestic production of manufacturing. If a tariff was meant to provide protection for domestic industries so we could bring manufacturing back to the US, they'd need to be permanent. They'd need to be long term enough that you could start up a factory, hire the workers, buy the machinery, train it, and get a market established for that good, all while having some degree of trade protection. You'd have to be able to count on these tariffs being there. Well, if they're a negotiating tactic, you could turn them off tomorrow. All right, England kissed the ring. They said they were sorry. I felt good enough. Tariffs are back off again. So if they're going to be kind of at a moment's notice turned back off once a country negotiates with Trump, that means they can't support the production of domestic manufacturing. It's one or the other. None of this has been made clear as to which is the actual goal, but right now it looks like it's negotiating, which means that we're all going through this economic pain to get a better deal. And what does that even mean? It's not about actually changing the industrial composition of the US economy. Okay. Second thing you need to know if it's a negotiation is that, when it comes to the US and other countries, we both have some form of leverage. On the US's side, our leverage is our size and our wealth. I mean, we're the largest economy in the world. For a lot of countries, we're their primary, secondary, tertiary export market. It's massive that they can send goods to the very large number of US consumers that rely on foreign products, the very large number of US producers that rely on foreign parts. That's where our leverage comes from. But where their leverage comes from is how much pain they can inflict on US consumers and producers, right? They hold the card of, well, okay, you want to put a tax on us, so or we're not going to send you coffee anymore. Or we're going to increase the price of how much it takes for you to get sparkling water from Italy or whatever price it is that they have control over. They get to exact pain on US consumers and producers. That's their leverage. That's what they have over us. They can't change the size of our economy, but they can change how much we pay for things. And we've put that on the table. Again, I don't know how much people realize that that's what we're bargaining over and that that's what Trump is willing to risk. I mean, one of the reasons why the Constitution puts the power of tariffs with Congress is so that it can be deliberate and deliberated, right? You don't want, an economic policy that has potential drastic consequences for so many people in the United States to come from someone that just shoots from the hip and has a temper, right? It's supposed to go through Congress so that people who say represent farmers, represent a certain producers in their constituency, know that their constituency is protected. The way that we've gone about this is there's no protection. It's just whatever he wants. And you are what is being risked. Your ability to buy things, your ability to produce things. You are what is being risked. The third thing to know about negotiation is that, again, this is getting somewhat farther afield than what I do in terms of economic policy. But for what it's worth, we're basically starting negotiation by sucker punching someone. It's like walking up and punching them in the face and then trying to dictate terms of like, well, you can't kick me, you can't bite me, you can't get a friend to help, also no knives. And like, now you have to do what I say. It can be pretty hard to control people's reactions when you've done something so aggressive and underhanded. I mean, a lot of these tariffs violate legally binding trade agreements that have been negotiated, some of them by Trump himself in his first term. We're basically breaking all of our trade deals or negotiated pacts to do something really aggressive. I don't really know how well people will respond to that. I mean, for one, politicians, even if they wanted to come and negotiate with Trump, they might not have the political cover to do so because people would be so mad at the US's aggression. So to say, well, maybe I do want to negotiate with him, but I'd lose because the politics in my country is that we shouldn't negotiate with people like this and we shouldn't allow the US to be bullied. And my country, the people have said we'd rather go through pain than negotiate with the United States. Whereas in the United States, we didn't really understand the amount of pain that we were facing for a negotiation that was started with a punch. So that just the political economy component, I don't know as much about, but I do know that we are starting from a place of aggression. And then the last thing you need to know about this negotiating tactic and whether or not it would work is that it has not been very well thought out. There's been a lot of coverage of how like the formula for tariffs was, kind of made up. They came from trade deficits. They don't really make any sense. But I think one way to see that so clearly just how ill-conceived and like underdeveloped these tariffs are is to look at Switzerland. Switzerland is a notoriously neutral country. They mainly export chocolate and watches, and they do not have a single import tax against the United States. They don't tax anything we send them, anything at all. Not a single tax. There's no tariff to negotiate on their side. Every tariff is already set to zero. And in the broad tariff announcement with like the big poster board, they were hit with a 32% import tariff on Swiss goods coming to the United States, even though there's not a single thing that they tax going in the other direction. They were hit with a larger tariff than the EU, which they're not a part of, or the UK. Now, this is despite the fact that the other thing that they send to the US is pharmaceuticals, because there's two massive pharmaceutical companies that are headquartered in Switzerland, Roche and Novartis. Roche and Novartis. So we put a 32% import tax, but we waived pharmaceuticals from being a part of it. And we put it on a country that simply has no tariff to reciprocate, no reciprocal tariff to negotiate downward because they don't have any in the first place. This is what I mean by being horribly ill-conceived. Like, what are we trying to negotiate with Switzerland that they would be hit hardest of almost any country that we've decided? We've told them that their pharmaceuticals are not currently at risk, but they have nothing else to negotiate with other than their pharmaceuticals. So what are they going to do? Not send them to us? Tell us that they're going to put a tax on the pharmaceuticals that we're sending there? Like there's nowhere good to come from a really good trade relationship. While it's true that we had a trade deficit with Switzerland, part of that was also because we buy gold off of them, which is pretty expensive. We buy pharmaceuticals off of them, which is pretty expensive. But in turn, they're one of the largest investors in the United States. I mean, they invest so much in research and development here because they have a large pharmaceutical company. So what is the goal of punishing Switzerland so severely and so disproportionately that we would risk the price of pharmaceuticals coming into the United States? This is what I mean by ill thought out, ill conceived, not necessarily a basis for good negotiation. If you wanted to accomplish something, you need to convince people why we need to punish Switzerland. So this is a lot. This is a lot. I had notes to make sure I was keeping up with it, but I think the complications in understanding these tariffs and what they could accomplish via negotiation is itself an indictment of what they're trying to do and how they're going about it, right? He's mad. He put in a tariff. It doesn't make sense where it came from. It doesn't make sense who he put it on. And if people don't comply, he gets more mad and adds more tariffs to the top of the pile. But in the meanwhile, all of the risk is being borne by U.S. consumers and producers. It's why we don't negotiate like this. It's why we don't put so much power in the hands of one person. It's why we leave it to Congress to make sure that people are looked after, even if they're not important to the president. They're important to somebody in Congress, and they should be represented in this type of negotiation.